Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our Friday Forum. Come on in if you're still just getting here. And I want to welcome you to this pre-AVDS event as we prepare to kick off the Anabaptist Vision and Discipleship series here at Heston College, which begins tonight and runs throughout the weekend. This is an annual event for us here at the college, and the theme this year is Growing More Like Jesus from the Outside In, Transforming Heart and Mind. This helps to connect to our student learning outcomes of examination of the Christ-centered biblical story, exploration of Anabaptist Mennonite faith and values, and awareness of one's own faith perspective within the context of the local and global community. Our speaker for this forum this morning and for AVDS is Mark Scandrette, and Mark is joining us from California along with his life and ministry partner, Lisa Scandrette. Together they have written the book, Free, Spending Your Time and Money on What Matters Most. Mark is an author, teacher, activist, and coach for leaders and teams who want to create a better world from the inside out. He is the founding director of Reimagine, a center for integral Christian practice, where he leads an annual series of retreats, workshops, and projects designed to help participants apply spiritual wisdom to everyday life. And he is on the creative team for the 9 Beats Collective, a project exploring the Beatitudes as a 21st century vocabulary for the living way of Jesus. He will tell us more about himself, but I'm just going to go ahead and say welcome to Heston College, Mark. It's great to have you with us, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say to us.
Hey, good morning, Heston. Good morning. It's really great to be here. In fact, I wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for this part of Kansas, because my parents met up the road in McPherson. They went to Central College. Anybody heard of it? And my dad told me on the phone yesterday that he used to come here to Heston and play basketball. Any basketball players here? Yeah, so my dad's competed against your great-grandfathers on the basketball team. So I'm so glad to be here. I'm here with my wife, Lisa. Do you want to just stand up and wave for a second? And Lisa and I are going to be collaborating on doing some teaching over the weekend. I hope you might consider joining us for some of those events. We live in San Francisco, California, but we're originally from the Midwest. Lisa's from a farm in Minnesota, and I'm from Minneapolis. And about 21 years ago, we felt called to move to an area of our city called the Mission District, which we bought an old crack house and went to work to fix it up and figure out how to be a part of this amazing and diverse neighborhood that has a lot of Latin American immigrants and old hippies and a few punk rockers from the 80s. And now we have a group of tech workers that have moved in. There's a guy, a new neighbor that maybe you've heard of. His name is Mark Zuckerberg. Anybody know who? Is that a name that's familiar? He bought a house about 10 blocks from us. So suddenly we have a neighbor who at the time was under 30 years old, worth $58 billion. And even after he helped kind of rig the American election, he's still worth about that amount. I think it was up to 64 and then went down. And Lisa and I have 3 young adult kids, Haley, Noah, and Isaiah, who we co-house with now. And love spending time together. In fact, Isaiah and I just got back from Bangkok. We spent 8 days together on his break from university. He is a senior at San Francisco State. And I think if you asked my kids, what do you think of your parents? They might say, or especially Dad, what do you think of Dad? Isaiah might say, my dad is kind of odd, but also pretty cool, you know? And I don't know about you. Would that describe what you think? Anybody, would that describe what you think of your parents? Like sort of odd, but also cool? Let me see some hands. I see some nodding, right? And it's a little how I felt about the family that I grew up in as well. I grew up in urban Minneapolis, and I had 3 sisters, and we lived in a pretty tiny house for the size of our family. We were that oddly simple family. I was the kid wearing the hand-me-down clothes, and everybody else got to have lunch at school. I brought the brown bag with me, and it made me feel a little bit different. But there was some other things about that family, being the oddly simple family, that were pretty cool. My mom got to stay home, and we got more attention from our parents. My dad didn't work a high-stress job. He came home at 4:30 each day, and I have great memories of walking along the Mississippi River, playing volleyball in the backyard, good discussions around the dinner table. The one downside to living in a really tiny house with 3 sisters and 2 parents and lots of friends is that we only had one bathroom. Anybody besides me here who grew up in a house with only one bathroom? All right, the few and the proud. I see some big smiles on these faces, so you know what it's like, right? In my house growing up, it looked, so that's 6 people that have to get ready for school and work or church. So in my house, it looked like maybe one person in the shower, another person using the toilet, and probably a third person standing at the sink brushing their teeth. And we just knew everyone kind of averted their eyes if it was someone of a different gender. But the only thing is you did not want, if you were sitting on the toilet, you did not want to be touching the person brushing their teeth, right? So when I was 13 years old, my dad came home from work one day, and he said, I have a new opportunity. I've been invited to take a big promotion, and it will mean that our family will have more money than we've ever had before. But we're going to have to move from our home where we have lived your whole life to rural Alabama, at 1,100 miles away. And my parents thought about it, and we talked about it, and they prayed about it, and ultimately we decided that it was a good move and opportunity for our family. And so we loaded up that summer, and we went from that tiny house in Minneapolis to a grand house in rural Alabama. There were bedrooms for everyone. We had great rooms, and it came with a pool table. My favorite part was the swimming pool in the backyard with a slide going into it and a diving board. We had a 2-acre lawn, and I had the privilege of mowing it with a push mower all summer. It was good we had that pool because I had to, I'd get so hot and sweaty, I'd have to jump in the pool and then get out and keep pushing the mower. And this house had not 1, not 2, not even 3. It had 4 bathrooms. I mean, we hardly knew what to do with the space. And it was also a great place to host and offer hospitality. I invited the whole senior class of my high school over for like a final study party, and my mom made food and stuff, so it was really great. Around that time, I was thinking about what's next in life. And I had met Lisa when I was 15 years old. She was back in Minnesota, and I said I was kind of thinking about wanting to get engaged, to be married. And my dad sat me down, and he said, Mark, I think you should get serious now about your life. Like the choices you're making right now are going to have an impact for the whole rest of your life. He said, when I was your age, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went off to college, Central College up the road from here. And he said, I met your mom, and all I knew is I wanted to be married. I didn't know what I was going to do for work, where I was going to live, or what I wanted to be about. And pretty soon, you and your sister came, and there was like difficulties getting work in this region of the world. And before I knew it, life had kind of gotten away from me. And I never really got to ask those bigger questions. But you have the chance to really ask those things now, before you make the decisions that are going to lock you in. And so I took some time to ask some big questions. And now I had space. I could go into one of those bathrooms and be all alone to ask the deep questions of life. Who am I? And why am I here? What is it that makes life meaningful? And how can I spend my time and money on the things that matter most? I wasn't asking these questions alone because I was dating Lisa, and we would have these conversations. And this is a little bit of ancient history for you, but back in the day, you had to pay for long-distance calls. They weren't free. So I spent all of my spare money talking with Lisa 1,100 miles away about these questions. And we together came up with some statements about this is what really matters to us. This is what we want to be about in life. And it had 5 things. We said we want to love the Creator and creation. We want to nurture healthy family. We want to offer hospitality and care, especially to those who suffer and struggle. We want to use our gifts to serve. and we want to live simply, gratefully, and creatively. This is a really good exercise. If you haven't done this, I'd encourage you to really take some time, 30, 60 minutes, and think, what is it that really matters to me? What do I want to be about in life? I got the sense then, and I still have the sense today, that if we're not careful, if we don't make conscious choices about time and money, then the forces of a consumptive and materialistic culture will make most of our decisions for us. At that time, and maybe this is like 19-year-old male ego, but I looked around and I thought, I don't see very many people my parents' age really thriving, really doing things they're passionate about. I see people getting up in the morning and going to work and feeling like wage slaves and coming home, and even in their relationships, not having a lot of passion between partners or for life. And I was like, I don't want to end up that way. And it has to do with some big decisions that you make at this point in your life. I like to say how you spend your time is how you spend your life. There are things you can do now to use your time in conscious ways. One of the best things that I was able to do when I was in college was first year of college, I sort of just did what came to me. I slacked off on the homework and, spent a lot of time hanging out at the student center. And then my second year, I was like, I don't want to wait to live the life I was made for till after college. What could I do now to really pursue what life is about? I spent some time in study and meditation. I spent some time volunteering with at-risk youth. And these things made me feel like I was alive and made me feel like I wasn't waiting to live until after college. But also, how you spend your life is shaped by your economic choices. There are choices you're making now that will affect your ability to be free to run along with your passions later on in life. There's a kind of a script that we have in our culture that goes something like this: get the best grades you can in school so that you can get into the best college you can. Get the best grades in college you can so that after college you can get the best, the best job, right? And then hopefully spouse and house follow, and the possibility of maybe some children, and then some interesting hobbies, and maybe a good vacation, or some things that you acquire that make you feel like you're experiencing the good life. And many people are realizing that this dominant message in our culture, in the immortal words of General Akbar, it's a trap. Like more, bigger, better doesn't lead to the things that really matter in life. There were deeper things that we were created for. And so we're invited to ask the question, and the gospel invites us to ask this question: what's the right size life? Not just the right amount of time and the right amount of money and the right amount of stuff for me, but what's the right size life so that everybody on the planet can thrive, not just the few of us who live in the most privileged places on the planet. So I want to name some things. You might be sitting here this morning and already you've got some money ache, some anxiety about how am I going to pay for school, or how am I going to have the money that I need to get through this month. And that's a real thing. I will tell you, and I tell my kids this: if I could rewind my life back to when I was 19 or 20, I would try and be less anxious about those things, because we live in a world where our Creator cares for us and provides what we need. We can trust. Some of us may have a meaning or soul ache. You're in that time of your life where you are asking those big questions. Why am I here? And hopefully you want to take the answers to those questions and say, how can I be the most free to pursue the things that matter most with my time? How can I pick work that's meaningful, that really feeds me and makes me feel like I'm contributing to the greater good and the wholeness that our Creator desires for our world? And if money's not an ache and meaning's not an ache, if you've got those nailed, there's a third ache that I think we're all invited to have, and that's the ache for global sustainability and equity. We live in a world where those who have wealth and those who don't, there's getting to be a growing gap. I just read the other day that 4 people have the same resources as 2.6 billion other people on the planet. And I know across the country, and another history lesson, when I was coming up, when you went to a town or city across America, you didn't see homeless people. As I travel across this country now, I see people without homes in almost every town and city. And it's partly related to this. In my neighborhood, we have hundreds of people sleeping on tents out on the sidewalks because the cost of housing has gotten so high. Jesus had some interesting things to say about what the good life is, what thriving is. In one place, he said, a person's life does not consist in the abundance of their possessions. It's not what we can own or acquire that brings real fulfillment and happiness to our lives. I suspect that if Jesus was saying this today, he might also say, a person's life doesn't consist in the abundance of their consumptive experiences. Because some of us these days are less interested in the big house or lots of cars, and we're more like, well, I want to travel, or I want to eat such delicious food that I can take pictures of it and post it on Instagram and Facebook. So that's not a material understanding of like good life, but more of a experience-based way. And the message is the same. More and more experiences aren't going to fulfill you. You're made for something deeper. There's another place where Jesus says, do not worry about your life. What you're going to eat, what you're going to drink. Seek first the kingdom of God. This was the revolution of Jesus. He came proclaiming the reality of the kingdom of God, saying, you are made to participate in the healing and restoring of all of creation. Your life has deep purpose because come join in with this. You're the light of the world. You're the salt of the earth. Let's cooperate to see the world be on earth as it is in heaven, to make the world what it was made to be. So we have a deeper purpose, more than just the jobs that we might have to earn money. And Jesus is, in a sense, saying with this verse, when you wake up in the morning, I don't want you to just think about your to-do list, your studies, your job. I want you to realize that you're on this planet to be a part of something bigger, the healing and restoring that God desires for all creation. The Apostle Paul had a young Padawan who, when he was talking about well-being, he said, Timothy, if we have food and clothes, we'll be good with that. I came across that text when I was 19 years old, and I thought, this is an interesting understanding of the good life, if we have food and clothes. So I'm looking out on you all this morning, and I'm assuming that if you were hungry, you were able to get some food this morning. Is that right? I saw a few of you in the cafeteria this morning. It's good. I'm looking out and I'm noticing that all of us have clothes on today. And that's a good thing. Most of us look better with clothes on than without. So we've got that covered. Now we can pay attention to the more important things of life. How can we be a part of the healing that God desires for our world? So based on some of these reflections from the teachings of Jesus, Lisa and I, at 19 and 20, while we were at college, had a conversation about, could we do an experiment? What if we could live more by the teachings of Jesus about well-being and flourishing, and less by the materialistic kind of assumptions of our culture? So we came up with what we called our radical contentment experiment. And it's now in its 28th year. And I actually found this old notebook a few years ago and looked at what we'd written down. And here's the 5 things that were part of our experiment. First, we said, from here forward, let's be grateful for what we have, content with what we have, and embrace some voluntary limits. You see, it's easy to get into the mentality of more, bigger, better. Better clothes, a better vehicle or transportation, a better place to live. And it's an arms race, like it just keeps going. And when is the more or the better enough? And when we chose to adopt a more grateful and content posture, one result right away was, wow, everything that we had or could receive felt like a gift because we didn't expect anything more. If you expect a lot, you can end up being disappointed a lot of the time. But if you develop this posture of contentment and gratitude, life is good. You can say thanks for the good things that come to you. Second, we said we want to live by a spending plan and whenever possible, avoid debt. I've worked for almost 20 years with people in their 20s in San Francisco. They come out of college and they move to the big city. They had dreams about how they wanted to work in nonprofits and be a part of ending human trafficking and helping refugees. But there were these nagging things about school loans and about credit card debt that often it took those young people away from meaningful work and into work that they had to do to kind of finance the life that they'd chosen. If you can learn to pay for things as you go, and if possible, avoid debt as much as possible, you can live with a lot more peace and freedom. Third, we said we want to be resourceful and ecologically conscious, using less resources and living more justly. And then fourth, we said we want to live generously and make decisions about our time based on passion and purpose rather than a paycheck. And this has been probably one of the most rewarding things to me is because we've taken some of those other steps, we could wait until the kind of work surfaced that we really felt passionate about and say yes to that instead of just picking the job that maybe we didn't like. I was mentoring a young guy a couple of years ago, and he ended up telling me how much he made. And I said, he was way younger than me, 20 years younger than me. And I said, man, you make more than I do, and you're half my age. And he said, yeah, but you do something with your time that really matters to you. I go to a job that I find meaningless. And so learning some of these things can help you have the freedom to choose the thing that you find meaningful. And finally, we said, if we adopt some of these practices, we might have times where we don't have enough. And so we said, we want to trust God and ask for what we need and expect the unexpected. And over in our experience, when we've had those needs, at one point it was when our first child was born and we didn't have money for diapers and we had to ask God to provide. Other times it was like, man, we want to help these at-risk kids, but we don't have a vehicle, and God provided a vehicle. Someone just gave us one out of the blue. And so we can learn to live lives that are generous and open to resources coming to us that we need. So I want to dare you to believe today 3 things. 1, I dare you to believe that you were made with a purpose. And if you aren't doing this already, I would dare you to start doing some journaling, start having some conversations with people close to you, and ask some big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be about in life? What's going on in our world? What are the aches and struggles in our world that maybe I'm called to address with my life energy? Second, I want to dare you to believe that you have enough. What if right now you took this radical step to say, I'm not going to make my life about more, bigger, better. I'm just going to receive the life that's been given to me with thanks and contentment and learn to live out of that sense of abundance. And then finally, I dare you to believe that you can use what you have and who you are to do good. You are the light of the world. You're what this world needs. And we only are living up to our potential if we start to resonate with the aches that our Creator has to see all things made new. Where I live, it's things like addressing homelessness and mental illness that is so rampant in America and where I live. I was just in Bangladesh, a country that is struggling for the right to see the rights of women upheld, and the basic things like clean water and access to good nutrition. So many aches in our world that we're called to and invited to resonate with the Creator's aches and say, how can I be involved? Our country right now is in a situation where it is so divided. And so many people of color are feeling the pain of being excluded or marginalized. And so we have an opportunity to reach past differences, to make connections with one another, to act in solidarity, to speak up against those forces in our culture that would tend to talk in terms of me versus you, and who was born here versus who came here in a different way. You can use who you are to do good. So a question to reflect on. What's crowding out or keeping you from a flourishing life? How do you want to be more free? And there's a text where Jesus addresses this. He looks out on a crowd of people and he sees them tired out, worn out, stressed out. And maybe sometimes you feel that way. And he says to them, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke on you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Jesus is inviting us into his way of life, a life that is ultimately more satisfying than any other kind of life you could design for yourself. And you and I can take the risk to try and explore that together. If you've enjoyed what I've been talking about, a lot of this and some very practical tools for college students are found in Lisa and I's book, Free, Spending Your Time and Money on What Matters Most. It's going to be available this weekend. And I've got some free resources that if you want to, you can just email me and say, "Mark, give me that free stuff that you said you promised to college students that will help with some of the things that I've been talking about." I want to close with a spoken word piece. Do you guys know what spoken word is? It's like loud poetry. And I wrote this piece when I first moved to my neighborhood, and I was walking the streets and seeing the needs and thinking about Jesus' invitation to seek the kingdom. And the poem goes something like this, and I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes and let these words wash over you. In my mind's eye, I am flying high across the sky, swooping in and out and dropping low, touching the ground of city streets like a spirit of God hovering over primordial waters of lump clay earth. I am waking up. I'm daring to dream again. I hear the voice. I hear the voice. I hear your voice over the waters saying to you and to me, I am here. The hidden whisper of love, that beautiful and terrible story you hunger to hear. Be still. Be still, sacred, scared child. Awake, awake from your stubborn, numb slumber. Open those sleepy eyes to my morning day light. It will not burn away any good it finds in that humble, cracked heart. Reimagine. Reimagine life with me. Look and see. Taste the splendor of my blooming spring garden. Rest weary home. Weep, weep while you can, while you still feel, while the pain is still real, while my love still heals. Reimagine. Nonfiction in full color, humanity and divinity live in concert together. The I and the we making sweet synergy. It's the song we all long to hear. Let the aria resound. May the earth shake with the reverberation of your ancient, apocalyptic, prodigious creativity. Reimagine. Reimagine all our voices in harmony with yours, Lord. Samba, rumba, rimba, Afro, Cuban beats, Italian opera, salsa, Latina, Tai Chi, mariachi, three-chord punk rock beats in the symphony, the trance, trip-hop, hip-hop, doo-wop, swing, big band, bleeding heart, acoustic folk, Middle Eastern dirge, zydeco, howling blues, and the salvation songs of plantation slave spiritual singing. We shall overcome. Yes, we shall overcome. Reimagine. A spiral, whirling miracle of you and me and us swept up in our Creator's remaking. Reimagine. Creator, recreate. Here, now, instigate a revolution of faith, hope, and love. Amen? Thank you.
I'll I'll invite you to come back tonight at 7 o'clock for the opening session of the Anabaptist Vision and Discipleship series. You're welcome to register tonight if you haven't already. And come to that session tonight or at Heston Mennonite Church at 10:30 on Sunday morning. Those are the two open sessions, even if you can't participate on Saturday. Have a great weekend.